Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just Another Esports podcast. Once again, you're joined by me, your host, Nicholas Shady Bacon, and my co host, Mr. Kevin Hubers. Hopefully, I will not get visited by the internet boogeyman anymore. I'm back on a LAN connection to my modem, at least, not over Wi Fi. And I'm not visiting my family anymore. So hopefully, my connection will be a lot more stable since I'm back at my own place. But this past weekend, we did have the first week of Stage 5 matches. This is the final stage before Champs. So all the matches outside of, I guess, the bottom four that can't qualify are relatively important for seeding. Obviously, Atlanta FaZe, they're guaranteed first seed, I do believe. So we'll be going kind of very quickly, I think, through the matches that we did have this first week. We'll be talking about the confirmed format, at least so far for Champs, as well as some of the kind of the storylines throughout that first week of matches, kind of leading into the second week. And then we'll obviously round out the episode with our week 2 predictions. So, kicking off the weekend of Call of Duty, we had London Royal Ravens going up against Atlanta FaZe. Both you and I got this one correct. It was a really quick 3-0 for the Atlanta FaZe over London Royal Ravens. That's pretty much to be expected at this point. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking on Atlanta since we've talked about them a lot and they're just really, really good.
Yeah,
And I
that's.
think at this point that's obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Atlanta's built different. We've been saying that since preseason. So since RC's joined Phase.
Yep. Maybe a little bit more interesting of a matchup, at least on the day, was the Chicago Optic versus Paris Legion. It mostly because it was going to be interesting to see kind of the Optic roster, like where they're at right now after kind of a relatively weak performance at the major. They did end up getting top 4, which isn't bad by any means, but obviously this is a team with players that are capable of being one of the front runners to take down Atlanta FaZe. However, they have not been that throughout the season. They're very comfortably in 5th place with a relatively decent sized gap between them and the kind of other contenders in Dallas, Toronto, and New York. All those teams are really, and pretty much there's like only a 10-point differential, at least going into this first week, between the second place and the fourth place team that they're all fighting. However, the Chicago match, it was a 3-0 over FaZe, pretty dominant. Were there kind of any takeaways that you saw here for Chicago?
Um, for the week, yes, but against Paris, no. I mean, Paris sucks.
Okay. All right. Well then, with that being said, we'll move on to the other match. Again, so this one it was a little more, maybe not competitive, but the first Friday matchup we had Minnesota versus LAG. LAG, being that ninth place team, the one closest to making in. However, I do believe with one of their losses later and with some of Florida's wins, Florida kind of confirmed their spot, and LAG is no longer able to make it in. Um, Not 100% on that, but I believe I saw that somewhere during the broadcast. Minnesota, they did not go with their role swap of, I believe it was like Priesta moving to SMG and like Attach moving to AR. They did not make that swap, and it did seem to. Well, it didn't seem to. Didn't like. There's not really too much. I mean, they played LAG and then they played Toronto, so kind of two very different skill level of teams. They beat the team that they were expected to win against, and then they lost pretty comfortably to Toronto. They lost that 3-1 or 1-3, I guess. But I like. There's not really too much to say on Minnesota. They're kind of just where they're at, and it seems like that's kind of just where they're going to stay. They are ahead of 100 Thieves and Florida Mutineers. I believe there's about a 20-point gap between them and Thieves. And so it'll be very interesting to see if the LA Thieves are able to make up that differential and move into that 6th seed, since that is going to be very important come champs, as we'll discuss later, a little bit later on into the podcast, on why that 6th seed is going to be so important as compared to the 7th and the 8th seed.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
yeah,
I,
sorry,
I
go.
I did want to say something real quick about LAG. So this was the first time that we saw Billy Mental, the ex Gears Pro, play. Nick, what were your thoughts on Mental? I feel like it's worth just saying it now. We've been talking about him, being on the bench this whole time. Now that he's showed up to play not one but two games this week, what do you think?
Out of the rookies that have entered the league, and kind of out of all the players that have entered the league, at least for some time on a roster, he was definitely the weakest out of kind of all those
Yeah,
players.
that's how I feel too. I think this was more of a media show than anything else. Mental, like, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for the guy and what he did in Gears of War, but he just doesn't got it. Like, there's just no way that he's going to be able to play professional COD. Which kind of brings me,
At least yet.
well,
I mean, he might get better.
so let's talk about LAG Academy just for a second, and the
They
kind
did
of
just win something today. I don't know what it was.
they are like they're the truth. Those boys are the truth, and they're young and they're hungry. So, I get it right now.
Some of them are young. I
Well,
mean,
some of them,
you have
yeah,
Mox. You have Mox who's like mid-aged, and then you got Chino who's
yeah, okay, true.
he's
Money
been
Chi,
around the block for a while.
yeah, but Nero's a beast. Um, that kid, he needs to see some time because I mean he's been dominating in challengers. Like he's truly the truth. So I'm like they have the talent and the ability in other places. It's just it feels like they keep grasping at straws with like ghosts of professional COD, and I just it it like hurts me to say it, but I mean the mental thing honestly to me looked like a media event. There's no way that they thought that they were gonna go up against Minnesota and do anything. I mean, they pulled a game off of them, sure. They pulled a map off of them. And then Dallas. So I just it was
Yeah,
it was just something to bring up because I mean it was the first time that Billy Mental was able to play in the Call of Duty League. Welcome to the league, bud. Um, glad you enjoyed your stay. Um, we'll see if he stays for next event.
yeah. I think that is a good point to bring up was his performance and that it was his first time. And I mean, I think bringing him in was if they wanted to see how he kind of stacks up because they did get this player. He has a lot of history behind him with his career in Gears of Wars being by far the most winning player in that title
Yeah,
and
he's the
just
goat.
dominating the scene. And then he has this transfer over to COD. Like this, I feel like it was the right time to put him in. I thought it was going to come on a lot earlier. Obviously, they didn't see the performances they wanted to see out of him earlier on, and so that's why we're seeing it so late into the season, just because they really don't have anything else to play for. I mean, realistically, I do still think they had a shot. Um, like they weren't mathematically eliminated from making champs, but it was damn near impossible in pretty much everyone's eyes, and so I don't necessarily agree with them taking Money Cheen out since he was obviously probably one of the better performers on their team and is doing incredibly well in challengers, obviously with their lineup down there. Um, but I do think like if they were going to do anything with him as kind of a PR stunt or to even just to kind of see, okay, is this kid worth it? Or like, do we want to keep him? I do agree that like this was the time to do it, and it doesn't seem like he's there yet. So it's probably back down to challengers for him for a while, unless he wants to give up on Call of Duty and go back to Gears or something with maybe events starting to kick back up since we're moving into kind of the latter half of the COVID cycle. I mean, it's going to be around forever. It's probably going to be more like the flu, where you get your yearly shot or whatever. But I think most, at least of the United States, is moving back to somewhat normalcy. So that might be it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens moving into next year with his career in Call of Duty and what he decides to do. But kind of the first really interesting matchup of the weekend happened at the end of Friday. It was the LA Thieves versus New York Subliners. I did say that this would be a the shakiest we would see from New York. Unfortunately, it seemed like they had a pretty shaky week altogether, with Asim being assimilated back into the roster after him being out for stage 4 major due to some visa issues. And a lot of people were saying LA Thieves weren't good. I guess that was just a Beezy that was saying the LA Thieves weren't looking good. And so maybe I shouldn't be taking his opinion, since it's the number one team in the game, judging a team that's in the bottom half of the standings currently. So maybe that wasn't the best by me, but LA Thieves, they came out here and they upset New York 3-2.
Yeah, that okay. So one thing first, Hydra was playing on a Paris Legion player setup.
Yes, he was playing on. That was the game 5, I believe,
Yes.
is when that occurred.
Not only
Um,
that, we had another absolutely absurd, like could be 0.02 seconds away from being the subliners victory there. Um,
yep,
I
it was
mean,
around 11.
it was not only was it around 11, Asim was on the bomb and he was literally milliseconds away from a defuse before he got killed. It was yet again another photo finish, um, which right after the Dallas one was it really sent chills. Like this, that's like a what are the odds sort of moment. What are the odds that this is going to happen every week? Where I mean, they literally had game in hand, and then whip around the corner, make a giant hero play Draza. Like I mean, that's just like Draza should have never spent time off the starting roster, in my opinion. That kid,
Yeah,
that kid is the truth. He is beast. Like I cannot believe that they at times were like, maybe he's just not it. No, Draza is the truth, and they
yeah,
beat the subliners to prove it.
yeah. I feel like the only reason he missed time on the roster was simply, like, even at the start. I mean, Kenny said it too. It's just they didn't know him that well, and that I think that's the issue with a lot of these teams, is that they're not willing to take the risk on people that they don't know, even though, like, realistically, that player can kind of save your roster and your team and perform really well. And that's kind of the case here with Draza. I mean, John also, he came in, he didn't play bad. He kind of just did his job. He was, I think, ended the week around a 0.98, so almost a 1.0, so almost around even. So good from him. But yeah, it was really kind of Draza, Slasher, and Kenny just beaming people on the week. And yeah, this is a real tough loss for New York, because they really do need to kind of pick up wins, because right now they're in fourth, and they really want to be in contention for that second seed come the stage 5 major, and they want to be able to put themselves in a good spot to claim that, because it's going to be a difficult battle with Dallas and with Toronto, especially since, looking at their group, those two teams are definitely going to be kind of the top two in that group B. Meanwhile, New York, they still got to play Atlanta, and they're already down 0-2 after losing 3-0 to Chicago after another tech issue in one of their matches there. So really unfortunate stuff for the New York Subliners roster
Truly.
this past, like, month and a half, I feel.
Yeah, I mean with Asim and all of his visa issues, and then to take that and say, all right, well, on top of that, let's give you some actual technical issues. I mean, it's just it. PC COD has been a complete and utter shit show. It is. I'm gonna be 100% honest. Um, I'm really hoping that that Sledgehammer starts to see some of these as lessons learned and really gets their shit together. But who knows? It's Call of Duty.
Yeah, it's some it I feel like not all of it has to do with it being PC COD. Obviously, there's a lot of issues with PC COD, especially since there's no anti-cheat. Um, but I feel like most of it is just the game in and of itself. There's a lot of issues. I feel like we'd still be having issues with connection and issues with players dropping and crashes, even on the other consoles, even if they were playing on a PS5 or an Xbox, whatever they have for that. Simply due to the nature of like these Call of Duty games. I mean, it's very infrequent that you have games like CS:GO, League of Legends, Valorant. I feel like it's very infrequent that you have those games crash simply because they're not as complicated or put together as
I have no idea.
quickly
It's
as
not as
Call of Duty games are.
unoptimized.
But yeah, yeah, that I think that's probably a
Call of
better
Duty is an
better terminology
unoptimized
for it.
piece of trash. Like it's just it's. I have no idea why I've wasted so much time into this fucking game. Honestly, I just want to bang my head against the wall
But
sometimes.
every year a new one comes out
Every
and you
year, a
come
new one comes out.
crawling back.
Come crawling back. Oh my word. And honestly, after all the technical issues we've seen this season, it's further accentuated it. There has to be some changes. I mean, like
Yeah,
you're
I definitely feel like it would be better and quicker on LAN. I don't feel like even if there was an issue, it's like okay, we just restart the PC, get him back in, or it's like okay, we swap out the PC and we actually have a delay and we actually know what's going on. I feel like part of the biggest issue is like okay, we have this issue and the player has to figure it out, which a lot of these players aren't the most tech savvy
yeah, they're
individuals.
players.
I cannot tell you how many times I've reffed a station and one of the players is like, "Oh, dude, I can't hear my teammates," and his like Astro Mix amp is shut off, or he doesn't have his headset plugged in, or just such absurd things like that, where it's just like, really, dude, you couldn't figure this out yourself. Uh, so being able to like have the officials there to work out any tech issues and then have that communication to either the casters or the analyst desk to be like, okay, this is the issue we have. It's probably going to take about this long. Okay, we'll do this. We'll do this analyst desk segment where we talk about the teams, what's happened so far in the match, what can they do to come back from the deficit they find themselves in. I don't know, anything like that that you see in kind of other esports when they do have these tech issues. It's just really good communication. They know how long it's going to take. They pass it off to either the casters or to the analyst desk based on that information. And there's not like just these long pause screens of like, okay, 30 minutes have passed. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, I mean you can't have that.
No. But we'll move, with that being said, we'll move into our Saturday matchups. It was Atlanta versus Paris, another 3-0 there. Atlanta's looking to go perfect in stage 5, at least for group play currently. Next up, we had Florida versus Seattle. This was one, Florida came away with the W here up against Seattle Surge. Seattle's out, so not going to spend time talking about that one. Dallas, they 3-0'd LAG. That was to be expected. After,
Yep.
I mean, LAG, they're not even beating their challenger squad right now. So then we'll
Pranked.
move into Sunday. We had the LA Thieves up against London Roll Ravens. London Roll Ravens are also out. LA Thieves, they took that 3-1. Thought it was going to be a bit closer in that match, but it's really kind of London. Alex has just not been performing. I feel like all the other kind of changes they have made have been relatively good. Bringing Afro in, he's looked pretty darn good. Paul X has also looked good. Shawnee's looked good. It's
Yeah,
really kind of just been Alex that's been failing this team.
honestly, Paul's been looking really good. He's probably the best player on London's team. He's the most sound player. He can pick up a sub or an AR, depending on the rotation, depending on the hill, depending on the map, depending on the point, depending like he's got it in his head what he's gonna do every single time, and he plays some nerd spots. He got actually picked in that phase game I was watching. He was peeking like an old BO2 uh like slot where if you lay down on the track like in behind the red tractor where the B bomb is, um if you lay down right there, you can look down that street and you can see everything. You can see Broken, you can see the street. You can't quite see the L coming out of store, but he was there and just playing like an absolute nerd. and I was just waiting for him to get a kill. And Simp just magically just hops out of nowhere. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's obviously in this spot," and just guns him. Um, but like the dude is very cerebral, and I wish that it wasn't his first year in because I think his team might start listening to him more. So I think if London, well, London's chalked anyway, but if they had a chance, it would have been with Paul in the very beginning, and him kind of leading the way. He's a beast.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, well, I get we'll probably talk about this later, but I think this is a good time to talk about maybe now, at least with the London roster, is where do you think they go next season? Because I imagine they're gonna have Zero at least as an option. He's been obviously out due to visa issues and COVID regulations and whatnot, but he was originally supposed to be on this team. And kind of who do you think they keep? Who do you think they bring in? Because it did seem like they really had high hopes with Zero coming into the roster, and obviously Afro's looked good, Paul X has looked good, and Shawnee has kind of been the staple with their team. So do you think they make the play for an all European roster and they try and send Paul X to maybe to a good squad and they bring in Zero? Kind of where do you see this London Royal Ravens roster
I
kind of
mean,
going?
Zero has been doing well in the EU scene, and don't get me wrong, lots of respect for him. I really wish that he could do more for London. Um, COVID has kind of not necessarily ruined his career, but it's definitely made things much more challenging. And Zero is one of those guys that um, he was one of the best players on their roster last year, and to lose him kind of sucked, right? Kind of like the um, you know, it's kind of the whole reason why London has been such a shit show all year is because of the pandemic and what that means as far as work visas go. It's pretty hard to justify the United States that esports players are, you know, employees and they need to be here. Um, so um, if they drop Paul, picked up Zero, see that's the thing is Paul is such a good player. I don't even know if I would want to get rid of him, even for the whole sake of keeping it all English or what have you, or UK because Shawnee's Scottish. Um, so I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of players in the EU scene that would be great to accentuate and hype up, and I want to see that more often. It's just I mean, getting derailed into online COD kind of screwed all that up, you know. So, uh,
Okay, well, yeah, I definitely think that's going to be probably a roster to keep your eyes on. Definitely. I think that one in Seattle are probably going to be the most interesting since those might be rosters that don't completely explode. They might keep some pieces here and there. LAG, I think they're probably going to completely revamp, as well as Paris, they're obviously going to completely revamp. It's going to be actually interesting. Maybe some of the COD pros are going to move over to Warzone since that's getting a lot of money invested to it, and especially with the World Series of Warzone. Maybe Scraps will pair up with his brother and there'll be a duo in Warzone. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see kind of where everything heads going into next year. But still looking at this year, we had the Battle of the North once again. Minnesota versus Toronto. Toronto has had Minnesota's number pretty much all year, I think. I don't think they've lost to them once this entire season. And so they take that one pretty comfortably 3-1 over the Minnesota Rocker. And then, as we said, the Battle of the Pizza, New York versus Chicago, that was that not an upset, so to say. Like this was going to be a hotly contested series, we thought. But it did end up being a 3-0 for Chicago over the New York Subliners this time around. So on the week, I went 9-10. So I'm feeling really good. The only one I didn't get right was that LA Thieves New York Subliners matchup. The coin went 4-10. So below 50% there. It's going to need to kick back up, get that percentage going, and then you ended 7-10 on the week. So I would say pretty darn good performances from us all around. Coin could use some improvement though. But those were the week one matches for stage 5, and so moving into the discussion of champs and going back to that point of why that 6th seed is so damn important is because for whatever reason, the CDL decided to be fucking idiots and have an 8-team champs, but have 6 of the teams start in winners bracket, with the first seed and the second seed starting in winners round 2, and then have the 7th and 8th place teams start in the losers bracket. Why? Who fucking knows? This is the most asinine, absurd format for champs. You have 8 teams. That works. You literally just have first seed versus 8th seed, second seed versus 7th seed, fourth versus 5th, third versus 6th. Like, it's literally that fucking easy. I don't understand why they went with this asinine format. It makes no sense.
I you lost me. Honestly, I can't make any sense of it either. Um, it's just this is such a chalked year. Honestly, I feel like they did all their planning in virtual calls, which is all definitely likely. I mean, shit, they filmed some of it with the picking of the divisions and all of that stuff. So it's just I I can't keep making up excuses for why CDL does their organizational stuff. I'm becoming very jaded with this whole process.
Yeah, I mean, like the regular season, everything about that with the stages, the weeks, the majors, like great, loved it. Cool. You have this really robust season long kind of point gaining, and then you have the majors, which are kind of these hype events. And then it's supposed to culminate with playoffs and champs, and the bottom 4 teams don't make it. Okay, cool. We have 8. But then it's like the bottom 2 teams from that top 8 don't even start in winners bracket. Like, I don't it literally makes no sense. It's got to I feel like they're going to make a change to the format because it just makes absolutely no sense. Like they have to almost at this point, because there's just going to be so many complaints about the format, like there already have been. And last time there were just an overflow of negative comments about like the formatting of something. Like I remember last year it had to do with kind of the regular season format of the CDL. They did make an adjustment to it that I think was an improvement, and I think moving into this year they improved it even more. And so I hope that they're able to do something and make a quick change to this champs format where they just have it be a normal double elimination with the top 8 teams and not have anyone starting losers, because that just kind of really sucks. And it does make that 6th place spot incredibly important though, since you get to at least start in winners. But it does also make well, I guess it doesn't really affect the 4th and 5th battle, which is that's like Chicago. I feel like Chicago and New York, they're destined to face off in the first round, since it's looking like Chicago's probably guaranteed 5th and New York is looking like they're stuck in 4th place due to their 0-2 week this week. But yeah, I think the most interesting is definitely going to be moving forward in the coming weeks is going to be that Dallas versus Toronto matchup to get that 2nd seed, and then Minnesota, LA Thieves, and Florida Mutineers battling for that 6th place spot. But I think that was kind of all the relative news. I doubt there's going to be any roster changes moving forward from this point on, unless something insane happens. So unless you have anything else that I don't know about, maybe in the news cycle, I think we're ready to move on to our predictions for week 2.
I'm ready. I'm already typing in
Alrighty.
now.
Okay. Let me get the coin flip ready to go. So first matchup, we have LAG versus Toronto Ultra. So kicking it off pretty easily there. That's going to be a easy win for Toronto over LAG. I'm going to say 3-0. That we're both going 3-0. Coin's going to go with Toronto, smartly so. Next up, we have Minnesota versus Seattle Surge. This is one where I feel like Surge could take it if they actually try and care up against this Minnesota Rocker lineup. So I'm going to say it's actually, you know what? Maybe I'll give this to Surge. You know what? Surge, they can't make champs anymore. Maybe I'll
Playing
just give them a
spoiler.
3. Maybe I'll just give them a 3-2 win over Minnesota. I mean, Octane, he's buddy with Slasher, so maybe they're going to try extra hard to beat Minnesota so Slasher can move up into that 6th spot so he doesn't have to start in losers, because I guarantee you I don't want to hear him talk about that. And the coin's going to go with Surge as well. So Florida versus Dallas. Dallas has been looking scary as of late. Yeah, they only played LAG, but and they did have a really good performance at champs. I see them kind of probably being a really steady team, and I just don't see Florida being able to be a team to really contest them as of right now. So we're both going with Dallas. You're thinking it's going to be a little more contested there?
Yeah, I mean, Florida does like to show up for big events. You know, like they're gonna play Dallas tight, and I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if they won this. But I think that Dallas is in rare form right now. I mean, they're kind of looking Atlanta good. So not quite Atlanta good, but they're looking like Atlanta good. So um, I would imagine they pull it out.
Yep. Coin's going to agree as well. So far the coin's gone Toronto, Seattle, and Dallas. Our last Friday matchup to close it out, lead us into the weekend. We got Atlanta FaZe versus the LA Thieves. Both you and I are going 3-1. Coin's going to disagree with us here, though. It's going to say the LA Thieves pull out the upset and steal a dub from Atlanta FaZe. That'd be a grand heist if I've ever seen one. Moving on to Saturday, though, we got New York Subliners versus the London Roll Ravens. I'm hoping New York is able to bounce back after what to them is going to be an incredibly disappointing week one. And they should. London's obviously a much weaker team. They have beaten New York in the past, though, when New York was looking incredibly dominant during that stage three. However, I'm still going to give the win over to New York Subliners, as are you, I do see.
I mean, Coin of course screws it up.
Mm-hmm. Coin's going with London. It's fickle. It's a fickle coin. Our next Saturday matchup, it's LAG versus Florida Mutineers. Yep, going with Florida over LAG in that series. And then closing out the Saturday, we have Seattle versus Toronto. And that's another relatively easy matchup to decide there. I'm going to go Toronto as well. So, bunch of pretty boring Saturday matchups if we're being completely honest here. The coin, it did go with an LAG win over Florida. However, it is going to go with a Toronto win over the Seattle Surge. Moving into Sunday, we have the Paris Legion going up against the LA Thieves. I'm going to agree with you there. I'm thinking LA Thieves, they take this 3-1 pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
Coin's going with Paris.
Coin is
Coin's
really messing this up. Like,
Yeah, it started out strong, I think, with some. It did pick Toronto to win both their matchups. It did pick Dallas, but after that, it kind of went AWOL. It's not looking too good unless we have some crazy upsets
true.
during this week two,
Coin's
which is
playing
usually
spoiler.
I feel like we usually see all the crazy upsets during week two. That's kind of when they happen. But
Coin's going into Major 5 playing spoiler. That
yep,
is that is something else, Coin.
move on. In the Sunday, we have another rematch of Atlanta FaZe versus Chicago. Yeah, it's gonna be a 3-1 Atlanta, probably gonna be a 3-0 since Chicago just cannot do anything up against the Atlanta FaZe. And the coin disagrees. Coin's given to Chicago. Oh, that would be that'd be an upset there for sure. Coin has having Atlanta have an 0-2 week. Holy cow. I need to get me some of what this coin.
Yeah, Coin off the Henny.
Woohoo. Alrighty. Well, it needs to check its binary. It might be off, but Sunday closing out, we got Minnesota versus Dallas. And I think Dallas's struggles with this Minnesota rocker are done and dusted. I don't think they're going to go to a game 5 against Minnesota ever again this season. And so I'm going to give it to Dallas 3-1 over Minnesota. I'm seeing you're going to say it's a bit closer though.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the season, Minnesota was really putting a hurting on Dallas. So, I mean, I don't think that it's unrealistic for Minnesota to try and step into the big leagues, so to say. I don't see them beating Dallas, but I do see them giving them a good run for their money.
Okay. I mean, Dallas, they said it themselves. They're lanners. They are not onliners. So we'll see. Maybe that does play a bit of a significance, although it won't affect the outcome since we're both agreeing with Dallas, as does the coin. So that is going to round out our predictions. This was probably our shortest episode ever. I feel like we probably rounded this out in 40-ish minutes or so. So a really quick one right here. That's kind of how it goes, I feel, towards the end of the season. A lot of this is pretty cut and dry, especially when you have such a defined bottom four, such a defined middle of the pack, and then such a defined kind of upper echelon. You really just do kind of have Atlanta reigning overall. You got Toronto and Dallas chilling there in that fight for second. New York, I guess, is probably below Chicago right now since they just got 3-0. So then you got Chicago looking up, trying to make it up there, but the point gap is a bit too large. Then you got New York, you got your Florida, you got your LA Thieves, you got your Minnesota. However, those teams are split into opposite sides of the groups, and then you got your bottom four, and none of those teams are really playing each other this week. So not not a lot of exciting matchups in store, I do not think. I mean, obviously you got some big names with Chicago facing Atlanta, but that and you got Thieves versus Atlanta, but outside of that, it's kind of a bunch of top of the table teams versus bottom of the table. So if you were to miss a week of Call of Duty, this would be the week to miss. So
Jeez.
if you don't want to watch anything and waste your Thursday, Friday night, and then your Saturday and Sunday, tune in to next episode of Just Another Esports Podcast, and we'll give you a very quick recap of all the action that happened
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
potentially be incredibly wrong with our predictions since the coin. No, week two is usually it's good week. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. But I think that's going to be it from us for this episode. I hope you guys all have a fantastic week, and we will see you guys next time.
Later.